And this is going to be very interesting, but I also want to throw out there for those who definitely are having problems with bed bugs, you can call Simon, the bed bug exterminator, at 216-386-1522. And one of the reasons why I went into that is it's an interesting segue because you had a couple of pesky bed bug type of politicians in East Cleveland that really got exterminated during a special election in East Cleveland's past history, and it was historic because they were able to get rid of a mayor, incumbent mayor, and an incumbent sitting city council president. And one of those who was there through the entire run is none other than Mansell Baker, who is running for mayor of East Cleveland. And as I look at certain things, I like what was said when it said that, hey, the future of East Cleveland depends on good government practices. We've been through the worst of times, making the next mayor of East Cleveland largely responsible for propelling our city in the right direction, and this is the very reason that you chose to run for mayor. Now, you're a longtime resident of East Cleveland, prepared for any challenge your city may face, and with that being said, I got to throw out this question. I'm sure you've heard it. It's kind of disheartening. But why run for mayor of East Cleveland when East Cleveland is going to die off anyway? It's over for East Cleveland. No hope for it whatsoever. What causes you to stand out so strong and say, wait a minute, that's not true. I want this task?
I believe, sir, thank you for having me on the radio, but I want to say to the listeners and to the East Cleveland residents, most importantly, that East Cleveland is worth fighting for. And over the past several years, we've had our challenges in government. And we have not selected an individual yet to see the vitality of our city and pushing our city in the right direction. Now, granted, there have been some mayors in our past, quite frankly, that have done some great things. I'll cite that, Eric Brewer did some great things, Emmanuel Anwar, while he was running and scaring all of the drug activity off of the corners. There could be some others that were cited. I took a page from a few mayors' books, but it's some mayors that I could not take a page from their book. It's because they had intention behind why they were choosing to lead this city in whatever direction they were choosing. As mayor, as the future mayor of East Cleveland, I see our city as a city of a particular choice. We can be a city that emerges from the dirt. We can be a city that emerges out of the challenges that are present right now. And quite frankly, if you can definitely pass the word about a young politician that is seeing the good in the situation, and he is choosing to be the next mayor of East Cleveland. 165781490.
You can text us at 216-804-7462. Your plan for change: remain transparent with city finances. As a matter of fact, a couple of things that I can say that I saw that stood out was your goal was for financial management, aggressively managing budgets and maintaining transparency, and reform spending, as well as streamlining the departmental spending habits. Can this be done, man?
Quite frankly, it can be done. The city has shrunk the deficit. We were once at $6 million. We were a little bit under $3 million. Looking at the managerial practices prior to the current acting mayor that we have, they weren't above board. The managerial practices relative to our finances. There was some misappropriation of funds. You want to dig deeper into the Cleveland Clinic deposits. Then you dig deeper into land sales and transactions. It makes you ask numerous questions as to what was going on with the fiscal operations of the city. And as mayor, one of your primary focuses should be the finances, because so goes the finances, so goes the city. and one asked the question, hey, how does East Cleveland recover with a deficit, or how does East Cleveland get revenue? All of those things lead back, as I was discussing with a resident earlier, they all lead back to how you operate as a corporation, how you operate as a department, how you operate as a mayor. I don't have a bad bone in my body towards the city in which I was born and raised. I've spent all my life in East Cleveland. I came back after college to put forth my skills to the city of East Cleveland and do something good. And I think that East Cleveland is asking, or I believe that East Cleveland is asking for new leadership and a more young and vibrant leadership to take on these challenges. Someone who is willing to work day and night for the cause.
I hear you. Now I'm going to get into a couple of positives that'll give Brother Ted or anyone else here time if they want to ask something. But I'm going to give the positives because I do have something that I have to hit you with. And this will be very interesting because I see that you have had experience with mentoring at-risk youth.
Correct.
Shaw High School volunteer coach.
Yes.
Member of Neighborhood Connections, among other things like the Clark State Peace Officer graduate. Definitely Shaw High School graduate, so it lets you know how vested you're in certain things. Cuyahoga County Executive Committee and Cleveland State University Neighborhood Leadership. But I have to stop and ask, because it's been brought up so many times, that when you served your term as council person in East Cleveland, a lot of people will say you were there at that turbulent time at the beginning of the East Cleveland Noble Road toxic dump, and there have been those who've said it's Mansell's fault. And to that you would say what?
To that I would say that that's an error. I know my contribution. My contribution was my vote, and that's where I apologize to the residents that I gave my vote, but I gave my vote towards the land transaction. I didn't give my vote towards the project and the unsightly thing that you see over there on Noble. Quite frankly, I am going to, as mayor, indict the individual. So he will be experiencing some legal action after we take office. And I rewind the clock a little bit. I did walk into the law director's office the day I found out the contract was breached. The day the project started to look like it was leading down the wrong road, I walked in her office one afternoon and I said, hey, I want a cease and desist order for the Arco property. They're tearing down the building. Now this is the old GE building, so this lets you know how early I was approaching
Right.
this. And she said she had to go ask Mayor Norton at the time. And I said, you don't have to ask Mayor Norton. I'm giving you a directive to issue a cease and desist notice to them. Because that is not what the contract said. This man stated that he would be operating a facility and a center, however which way you wanted to place it. And in my faction of what things should be, a facility means building, right? Fixed location.
Right.
And in that, he did not do that. He tore down the building, scrapped the metal in it, got about $3 million off of the metal, and began to commence operations. And then you can rewind the clock even more. I was not the one that took it out of my committee. Current acting mayor Brandon King took the legislation out of my committee with the help of Tom Wheeler, who was actually on the Contracts and Property Committee. And the two of them posted it on the executive council meeting at 1 o'clock while I was at work. So one asked the question, why did you do that? I mean, you got to understand they were probably under marching orders from the former mayor, Gary Norton. Hey, I want to move this forward. Could have been some other partners in that trying to push it forward. But I expressed my sincere disgust with council people going into a committee which they are not the chair of and removing legislation. So when we actually got to the moment of voting, the mayor at the time stated that, well, if we don't get this land transaction, and I knew it was probably a bluff, but sometimes with somebody with a thinking like his, you really don't want to tip the pot. but he stated that, well, I'm going to lay off employees if we don't have the money to meet payroll. So now you leave a council person choosing between a person that, potentially may not be able to feed their family, an employee that may not be able to feed their family, to the fact that we have to possibly go forward with something that may come back to bite us in the rear end. He did not state that in the interview or in the discussion during that executive council meeting at 1:00. I got there around 1:20. He did not state that he would have construction and debris sitting on the ground.
Wow.
So that was never a part of the whole grand scheme of ARCO in their operation in East Cleveland. So you have to ask yourself the question now, okay, what was your overall intent, and how did you think you were going to get by with trash that's sitting on the ground? So now you have to ask yourself another question: who did you help out? Who did you give money to? Those are some very serious questions that are going to have to be put forth on the table, because I do believe some people were paid off, and it wouldn't have allowed it if that did not happen, because all of the indicators are there that this is toxic, this is causing health concerns, this is going to be a large cleanup if we're left with it. Mm-hmm. And of course we are left with it. And if it had not been for some residents on Noble, Eric Brewer, and a few others, I hate to start naming things. That's when naming people. That's when you get in trouble.
Right.
I hate to put that out there like that, but I think the public has the right to know that there were individuals under directives to move this forward, and the partial picture that we got was that, okay, we need the land transaction, the sale of the land, in order to meet payroll, $125,000. So I said on record that I am only voting for this legislation on account that we need to meet payroll. I'm not voting on this for the project. And I left that at that. And so when he began to demolish the building, again, I went forward with a cease and desist order. Then I called him because she said, well, maybe you should give him a call. I called him, and I had some choice words with him. And I asked him, I said, well, why are you tearing down the building? Are you scrapping that and getting money off of this? So you made about, what, $2 million, $3 million now? And I didn't scrap the building. I said, well, a fool would leave beams that were 60 foot and 80 feet long. That was a 22,000 square foot building. So a beam may be $60,000 to $80,000. So you're making a pretty good penny off of that, right?
Right.
Lo and behold, he goes forward with the project, and it's still some speculation as to, is it causing harm? Is it an environmental issue? Yes, it's an environmental issue. People are getting sick. There are respiratory issues going on. The EPA came and looked at the thing, and they kept clearing it. Under whose directives, I don't know. But after a while, they saw an independent investigator who did air quality control for the Federal Bureau of Investigation and some other entities, came and evaluated and said, no, your report is wrong. Subsequently, somebody at the EPA was terminated. And then now they have a new administrator over air quality control, because you were not taking in consideration that this was a high priority, and you didn't investigate it thoroughly, because maybe it was just black people over there. I hate to say it like that, but I think that's what the thought was. And so, just black people, I don't think that that's the right assumption to come to, because I represent this city. I know this was an error. I accept that this was an error on the behalf of council and myself with my integrity and character. But it's something that I want to see fixed, and it will not go without penalty. And quite frankly, I've been most transparent. And if I have to fork over statements and things like that, I will do so. But as I directed my clerk, she did do that. She put the minutes word for word, and there is audio. So if anybody wants to do a public records request, because I know there are residents that will continue to bring it up and not see the good before they can see the bad. The good is that of course, this project is going to be cleaned up via the EPA and the county, and 20 trucks are there a day. I will acknowledge that. But I'll say this, that man is going to have to pay for the property, the blight in which he caused this community and the nuisance that he caused this community. And of course, over time, he's going to have to pay for some people's health care bills.
I feel you.
And not letting Gary Norton and others that are part of his administration off the hook either.
And as we get ready to let some of the others on our roundtable ask some questions, we're going to go to the phone lines of 216-578-1490. How you doing?
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
go ahead.
How are you?
Could you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, this is Brother Kahar.
Yeah.
How you doing, big brother?
Excellent, excellent. How you doing?
Okay, man. I just want to send my greetings and definitely my respect and my thank you. I've been in the hospital now going on 15 days. I was involved in a wreck, and I'm in therapy now, learning how to get back to walk and stand up. And I just want to give my shout out because since I've been in here, I've been getting calls, visits, and brothers and sisters on Facebook. And I just want to let you know that is listening. I appreciate you very much. I really appreciate that love. And as I was telling the brothers and sisters, I might be in the hospital, but my greatest medicine is y'all love. And I really appreciate that. And so I just want to give that shout out. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much for the love and the concern. All right, brother, I'm going to get back on and listen.
Okay, Brother Carr.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for the call.
Well wishes to you.
Mr. Baker, I was with you on that historic night that we recalled the mayor. And one thing that I don't think the listeners are getting, because you're a very intelligent, kind of almost soft-spoken young man. But that night, it's on a video, you can see it on Melanated Media News. That night, the passion, the release that came through you, I don't think the listeners can really understand your passion for East Cleveland. Why don't you give us just a detail on how you were feeling that night?
Well, you know, I have to give a little bit of background. I was Mayor Norton's right-hand guy for a while, one of them. And you know how you work for someone and you really don't have a overall clue as to who they really are or how they will really be as a mayor. I worked with him day and night. Many people know that. He's my fraternity brother. I made a promise to him that if he ever ran for mayor, I would move back from Dayton, Ohio, and help him run. And I did. When I found out he was running, I was here on a family reunion weekend, and I never went back to Dayton, Ohio. Furniture and everything stuck down there in Dayton. So after we campaigned and were successful, I went and got my furniture, and I said, well, hopefully I can learn under you and be the next mayor of the city. I made a mistake in telling him that. You know, you never really want to reveal all of your cards to somebody who may be insecure or may be threatened at some point well on down the road. Well, I did. I told him on the side of the fire station by accident, and thinking that, you know, I was doing this good thing for the community via him, through him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love my community. I'm Shaw High School Cardinal all the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, much of my family is in the city, and I care deeply about what is happening street by street.
Mm-hmm.
I ride at night. It's just a whole bunch of passion.
You feel he lacked that passion you have.
He lacked passion, and so, you know, I worked for him for 2 years. He ended up pulling me in the office one day and said, well, I'm going to have to cut your job. And I knew what it was about. I was seeing too much, and, you know, I didn't agree with the red light traffic camera program, and he caught me saying something against that. because they weren't calibrated right. They were flashing and doing all sorts of things and just catching residents. And I had to stand up first for the residents. So, you know, I'm like, well Gary, you know, they're flashing and people catching tickets. I mean, you know, this is not the image that we want to paint for our community. It's scaring off business, is making residents upset. You know, after he called me to the carpet, I had to say all of that. But it was an executive assistant that told on me. You know, so I'm like, well, if this is going to be the climate in this office, then I probably won't make it. I knew I wouldn't make it. So the day he pulled me in the office and told me I'm going to have to cut your job, I already knew what it was about. Had nothing to do with money, because after I got cut, he gave each of the executive assistants that were left increases.
I just
know.
wanted to bring that up because.
But I'm saying that about I'm fast forwarding. My relationship with Gary was intact for a while. Then it became severed based on what he was doing to the community in which I love. So if you're going to start hurting the community, you're starting to hurt me. You're starting to hurt my family that's left. You know, my mother and father and grandmother no longer living. They don't, you know, of course they stayed in East Cleveland except my father. But I have multiple godmothers and, you know, or seniors out here that claim me. I'm working for them. And then I have, you know, kids that I've taught. One of them is in the studio today, you know, from Shaw High School, former graduate. You know, I see them. And you're telling me that you care about this community. You wanted to sell it out to Cleveland for a council seat. Then you did other things like the Huron Road Hospital debacle, and that ended up leaving. Then you told the police officers to knock on doors for the red light traffic camera program, or they were going to get laid off, what turned out to be a lie. Then overall you're inflating people's salaries, so that's running the city's budget down. And then your managerial practices and your spending is making the proposal for Cleveland even more lucrative, because you're putting us in a position to be dissolved. So along with Devin Branch and William Fambro and some others, you know, we said, hey man, this guy has got to go. There is a multitude of people out here working, you know, along with myself, you know, to say, hey, we got to change this. And on that night, I thought about everything that this guy has did to this community. And I thought about every person that went along with him. And then I thought about why I broke away from it. And when I broke away from that, that was the best thing that I ever did in my career.
We got a caller for you. Who's on line one?
Hello, Mr. Baker.
Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hi.
We can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what happened.
Uh-oh. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, all right. I just want to welcome you, and we're so glad that you're running.
Thank you.
And we do feel that you're going to do an outstanding job if you are elected.
I appreciate
So welcome
that.
to the race.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and I look forward to working very hard for you.
Let's take the next caller. Hello?
Hello?
Yes. You called?
Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Can you hear us?
Somebody here?
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, my name is, I like to talk about East Cleveland.
Go right ahead.
All right.
My move is for the youngsters. What are y'all kind of pro you guys gonna start for the youth? I mean, we got so many people in this city that's older people that that got a lot of good trades. They can teach a lot of these youth how to do certain things: plumbing, electrician, carpentry, drywall, and we can buy these houses before they get to these houses and fix them up and sell them for, like they do on TV on Channel 8, for $10. Just sell a house for $10. So people, you know, would just love to put their money in to try to get a raffle on a house for $10. Because we got the youngsters in there fixing up the house that we buying for a little bit of nothing around here, that we giving it away to these investors that they're going to take from us anyway. Nah, that's basically my saying and what I want to say.
Hold on.
Understand what I'm saying? If
Yeah.
it sounds good, use it. I am a citizen of East Cleveland, and that's just the way I think about it.
Do you
I'll
have
talk to you later.
Hold on. Hello. Caller?
Yeah, I'm listening.
All right, do you have a question for Mr. Baker?
Well, my question to Mr. Baker is that when he come there, is he gonna do that?
I follow your question, man. I can break it down, and thank you for that feedback too. While I was working in education, and currently I'm a dean of a school in Warrensville. That's a dean is technically a principal status. But I worked at Shaw High School. I worked at Euclid. I coached athletics. I've worked to get children jobs through Youth Opportunities Unlimited. And even students that did not fit the qualifications for Youth Opportunities Unlimited while in school, I ushered them to other programs. I took them on college tours while working for the city and not working for the city.
But I didn't mean to cut you off, but I followed you. You're very good at what you do.
Yeah,
that's why I'm gonna vote for you, because I'm looking for young.
Thank you, sir. But as it relates to the trades,
you've taught my kids. My kids know you.
Thank you, sir.
I know you, but you don't know me, and that's good. But that's a good thing, because I watched what you do, and you did some great things in the city.
Thank you, sir.
So, I'll give you that respect.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. In relationship to your concern about the trades, not everybody is college material, and
they don't have to be college to learn.
Right, and so
they don't have to be college to learn how to put plumbing in.
Right,
they don't have to be college to learn electricity. They don't like that. I know that for a fact. Because I wasn't college material, but I learned it, and our youth out here can learn it.
Right, and so I've talked. If I can just
won't even get it.
If I can just say this one.
I used to give a lot of that.
If I can just say one thing, man. I talked to about 3 residents within this last week, and all of them either are in the electrical, they're in plumbing, or HVAC. And they said that once you are sworn in, if you could put together a transitional program for those with felonies, those that do not want to go to college, that would be very, very pivotal for the direction in which this community is going. I do not want to see our guys on the corners. I do not, and some of them I went to school with, and they're still out there doing the same thing in which they were doing when I left Shaw High School 15 years ago. And then there's some that, again, they probably, they want something different. Some people are good with their hands. Once you find out how a person learns, you find out how a person can make money and how they can advance themselves as an individual. So once I know, some people are good with their hands. So I do want to urge them to, hey, man, pick up this electrical trade, man. You can make over $20 an hour, sometimes $35 an hour. East Cleveland's looking for somebody in electrical trades area to put up our light poles and fix our lighting throughout the city because we don't have an electrician. So I'm going to partner with you, man, and I look forward to your help with this because as I go around the city and spread my message, I knock on every door and I ask them, hey, what are you going to do to help bring this community back? Because it's not just going to rest on the shoulders of a mayor or a city council or a school board or the judge. It's going to rest on every individual that is calling East Cleveland home, or it calls East Cleveland a place where they do business at.
All right, next caller. We got to do fast talk.
Thank you so much, brother, for your support.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Black House Sound, how's it going? I'm calling in to let Mr. Mansell know, because I went to school with him and I like what he just said, and that's absolutely true. It is a lot of people we went to school with that's still doing the same thing, and they need help. So I do, I can relate to that, and I agree with what he's saying. This Black House Sound, we make conscious music, and I was just calling in because I see that my generation is starting to step up. So I just wanted to say to Mansell, once again, keep doing what you're doing. This is Joseph Motley Jr. I work at Shaw High, and I'm going to vote for you, brother.
Thanks,
just
Joe.
want you to know that.
Thanks, Joe. Good seeing you the other day, man, and thanks for listening.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your support, too.
All right.
That's a good brother right there.
All right. Next question. Can East Cleveland, how can you convince the people of East Cleveland, preferably below the hill, that they don't need to be a part of Cleveland?
necessarily it's really not everybody below the hill that's trying to annex. It was a little bit above the hill that was trying to annex for what people would say is city service, and it's kind of somewhat, scattered, but the minute versus the large population. Many of the diehard East Clevelanders want to see East Cleveland remain East Cleveland, and I am a strong proponent and the first voice that said East Cleveland should remain, even to the extent of filing a lawsuit to invalidate the petitions that were circulated by Gary Norton. Going back to what Shaw High School used to be. Shaw High School is the stock of East Cleveland. It has produced some great people, and I'm one of them, and many of them calling in and listening. There's some great people out here that came out of that, vice presidents of organizations, teachers, principals, business owners, just a great deal of individuals that can be the recovery that East Cleveland needs, as far as what they can bring to the table. We don't stand to benefit nothing from joining Cleveland. Police response time can be debatable. Our fire department is great. Our fire department is one of the best in the state of Ohio. Many leave our fire department and get $100,000, $80,000, $100,000 jobs in other departments. But as it relates to down the hill, I would want to become more engaged in what this city can be, or what it can become again. And if they can band with me, stand up with me, and do their part, in season and out of season, we'll stand to recover as a city.
Okay, now I want to pose this question to you, because we don't really get to talk about voting with candidates. We talk about their platforms and different things like that.
Okay.
I covered the last recall, but the two before that for Wheeler, and the voter turnout was very low, especially on the below the hill. Now, how did the recall become successful if the people below the hill weren't voting, and the people on the hill that are generally going to vote for Mr. Norton? So do you have any explanation for that?
Yes, and this is why I say it was a team effort. I'm never going to sit in here and say, I led, or you won't hear the I word much coming from me. But we did this as a unit to organize first. And when Devin and I and a few others had some conversation around this, we said if we're not organized, we won't win. It has to be a solid ground game. It has to be phone banking. It has to be constant update, constant driving the issue home. Hey, we need change and we need it now. So over time, within a month or a month and a half, we started to really turn up the heat. And on the day of election and the night before, we did phone banking.